uh, to help us, have tools to have a better marriage. So we are going to share some points. It's only a 40-minute session, so we can't go into great details, but we will surely touch upon the important aspects and parts. And you can ask us questions later. There's time for question and answers. Yeah.
This is a very important topic to deal with because of the situation that is we are also seeing it. The conflicts in a marriage is happening, and it is a lot of divorce cases. We can see it. Even you see it in the outside world, in the secular world, in the church circle, and lot of in the JY circle as well. And means a lot of issues are happening, and now it is increasing in a the proportion is increasing in many other places. People coming and coming and sharing the issues. So uh, maybe the most of us here have spent a lot of in their marriage. We have spent almost 24 years in our marriage. There are the conflicts will be there, but if you are managing very well, I think it is uh, good way of handling it. How you are handling it, if you know it, if you are aware of what is
Yeah.
happening, then that is the starting point of resolving the conflicts. So but this is the issue is increasing today's youngsters. Not, they don't want to get married, and if they are married also, there is a very within few years you can see the conflict started just rising in their own families. So conflicts is inevitable, and at the same time, is it uh, conflicts good or bad? I think the conflicts is always there, and it is always good because we love and care for each other. Why we are fighting, why we are have a conflicts or something, because we are passionate about certain things in our own families. Maybe sometimes with the children, sometimes something we are doing on our own, sometimes about our spirituality. So we are passionate about certain things, and that is why we are maybe we have our own maybe a difference or something. So
Yeah. So, research says that if there's no conflict, the day the marriage has no conflict, and the husband and wife are just carry moving on without any issues, that is the start of the end of the marriage.
So, this God's purpose in our conflicts is to test. This is Catechism of the Catholic Church says God's purpose in our conflict is to test our faith, to produce endurance, to refine us, and to bring glory to Himself. This is a hope He gives us that we can actually approach our conflicts as an opportunity to strengthen our faith and glorify. So it's a conflict is like an opportunity for each one of us, because every time it's already happening when you are just recollecting, you will find out that one. Every time we have a small fight or we have a small conflicts, it is we are just learning new things, and at the same time we are also have the endurance to handle the situation in a much better manner. So why conflicts? There are so many issues that can that is a reason for it, and we would like to cover certain areas. I mean, certain areas that is I think like it's a core of it. Whether God is the center of our life, God as a center of life. If God is the center of our life, again that is can. Then there is a divine order that God has given. Whether you, as a couple, we understood that order and following it. Then what are the priorities and circle in your life? That means so many things we are involved as a maybe as a family. There are our in-laws, parents are there. There are relationships with our church. There is a job we are doing it. We have a lot of things we are involved in. So what is the priority and the circle in your life? Then what are the male female differences that can that can be a type of irritants that can be there in your order. Then one important thing, maybe you have already covered it, the lack of communication in our marriage. See how that communication can be, uh, how we can make it much better. That is, then sexual difference we already covered. Maybe we'll just touch upon the main of it. Then mixed idea of married life.
So, when you say we'll be touching most of the other points separately, but when we have, many times we get into marriage. Uh, with different ideas in our mind, with ideas like, oh, this was how our parents had their marriage. They were uh, so good, and they were like, they had very easy, and there was so much of harmony between them, and that is what you're looking for. But when you're getting married, we are not just getting married to us. On the wedding day, you come all well dressed, you're so beautiful, you're wearing a very beautiful gown. The boy is all, he's also dressed up very well. He's wearing a coat. And so that's how you come into marriage. But beneath all those layers of clothes, makeup, and all the things that you see outwardly, which are good, there are a lot of wounds that are yet to be healed. There are a lot of wounds which the person has had growing up. So, uh, sometimes you may say something, but what the other person might feel bad about it and not. And what does the media teach us? The media teaches us that it's a culture, it's a fading. If your romance is fading, then you need to quit, and or leave, or I have fallen out of love. So these are some new the terms that's thrown out a lot, like you've fallen, he doesn't make me happy anymore, all those kinds of uh, negative, selfish thoughts. So these are some of the thought process that's going on. uh, but marriage as such is actually a sincere gift to self, a sincere gift of self. So when we are getting married, we are supposed to give us ourselves as a gift to the other person. And it's a vocation, it's not a job, it's not a part of our life, it's a vocation. So it is a main thing, and everything else rotates around that also. And we need to see what motivates us. Is it fear that motivates us? Is it a feeling of like, oh, what is he going to think if I do like this? Or what is she going to think if I do this? Is he going to think that I'm not good enough? So we need to see what is driving our thoughts, are which leads to our actions and behavior. So these are the things we need to think about, and uh, see, like, what's actually happening. What, like Anthony was talking, awareness, just that word awareness. So what is going on for me, what is going on for him, and are we available for each other? Are we uh, present as the a perfect gift for the other person? So those are things we need to think about.
God, when Jesus has to be the center of our life, that is the main thing. Because yeah, one of the beautiful thing about our JBI uh, couples, we are, we all have a something in very particular. Jesus is the center of our life. We have so family has a domestic church. When, but at the same time, there are families in a JBI circle. One person is, yeah, very active, another person is not very. When the theological discord is happening, when it will affect the core of our family life. So that is how, yeah, with patiently we have to work on whether either spouses, husband or wife, if they are stronger in faith, they have to get the other person also slowly, through prayer, with patience, with your own witnessing life. We have to just get that person, and at the same time Jesus has to be the center of our life. That makes a lot of difference.
So the words of the Bible, Tobit chapter 8, verse 4 to 8. So this is a scenario where Tobit and Sarah are married, and then they come into the bedroom, and then the first thing they do in their bedroom is pray. So they pray that they respect each other, that they not take the other person for granted, and they pray that we don't use each other for sex or any other things, but it's like it's of total respect and accept the other person as God intended us to accept the other person. So this words of the Bible is really uh, very effective for family or family as a domestic church, or when like Anthony was talking about lumen gentium, like, so family parents by their deeds and words be the first preachers of faith. So saints and formation through their families, the first formation is through the families.
So marriage, so the whole thing is about unity. Unity. If you marriage as a sacrament, it's a sacred covenant that mirrors the love between the Christ and the Church. Catechism of the Catholic Church says. So that unity is the something that binds us together, and so this is something we need to work on. If it is already happening in many other families, otherwise, that is something we need to work on. So then the divine order in 1 Corinthians 11:3 it says
But
it
I don't
says,
need to understand.
so I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ, the head of a woman is her husband, and the head of Christ is God. So there is an order that is given in the Bible. St. Paul teaches through the but it's like if you see the Trinitarian God, Trinitarian, it is always the marriage is reflecting the Trinitarian love, and so Trinitarian God, how it is working. I mean, it's all are equal, but at the same time there is a specific role uh, each one of them has done. There is a creation. God the Father was very prominent. Then Jesus in the redemption. Now the Holy Spirit is active in our church. The similar way, the God, there is a husband and wife are equal, but at the same time, we need to have identify the roles of each one of us, and just to acknowledge how there is a that is one of the why it's a, if you are not following that divine order, many times the discord happened in our families in many of the things. Who is calling the shots? I have to just why you are asking me to do it, or there are certain things in which the husband has to take a prominent role, mainly about the spiritual matters, the intercession of the whole family, getting the families together. Many of the things you can see it. Sometimes the spouse wife has a lot of things in which they are very good at it. So they have to give her that role. So that kind of understanding and the role clarification and that order is very much necessary.
So in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21 to 33. So this is one of the readings that's read at all, for all marriages. So it says, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. So, and then there's the role of the husband. Husband, love your wife just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word. So the husband has the responsibility, as Anthony was just saying, of the spiritual welfare and the development of the wife. So he needs to be, getting himself acquainted more with the word of God. He needs to be more spiritual, taking a lead in the spiritual enrichment of the family. And not just that, when we say, wife, when you submit to your husband, now why should a wife submit to a husband? Not just because Christ is telling us, he's telling it us to us with a intention, and the intention is that the husband is going to love his wife as he loves himself, and he has to love his wife like Christ loved the church. Now we all know how Christ loved the church, right? He gave his life for the church. So now that is the expectation of the husband, that he is going to lay down his life for his wife. How does that sound like? How does that sound to all of you? So when you talk about husband laying down the life, it's not the husband is going to fight some enemy or have some body physical fight or something. It's all spiritual, right? So the husband has to die to himself, to his wishes, his or, many times his needs, just for giving life and nourishment to his wife and the children. So this is all spiritual. And because, as the word of God says, that you are going to leave your parents and then you'll be united to your wife, and the two will become one flesh. So you are one. So that is how that's how the church teaches us. That's how the Bible teaches us that respect is very important, and that we must be able to, ready to, die to ourselves in loving each other.
It's, Saint John Paul II, in his one of the apostolic exhortation, dignity of women, he mentioned about this whole passage. The author of Ephesians knows that this way of speaking, so profoundly rooted in the customs and religious tradition of the time, is to be understood and carried out in a new way, mutual subjection of reverence for Christ. This is especially true because the husband is called the head of the wife, as a Christ is the head of the church. He is so in order to give himself up for her, and giving himself up for meaning giving up even his own life. And he mentioned the crust of the whole thing. According to John Paul II, submission is to be mutual in marriage and not one-sided. Help is to be mutual and reciprocal. Both the things has to be there. It is a sin that breaks that mutual and equal relationship. So it's beautifully mentioned about. It's about the mutual. It's not in the submitting, but at the same time, the submission has to be mutual in marriage and not one-sided. So there are circles and priorities. That is one of the things that is going to affect us in a marriage. Uh, so we have a lot of things. We are active in the ministries. We have a family. We have a friend circle. We have your parents, your families are there. Their job, your hobbies. How you prioritize this one in a family? In a family, the one thing the God, yes, God is the center of our life. So then the wife and children is the innermost circle. Everything revolve around that one. Wife and the children has to be the priority. That is the core of everything. Then all the ministries, friend circle, and other things. So these circles is like a just mentioned, but the circles keep on rotating, or maybe just fluctuating according to the situation. Now we are part of the ministries we have to be active, but at the same time our ministry activities, we are, both of us are very active. Most of you are active in your ministry, but ministry should help in our family and children in a better way. In So if it is not helping, if it is making a discord there, and the family is then it is we have to just rethink how you are doing our ministries. Then families and friends. Most of us, their parents are living with us, or parents are, we have a very close. So it's like you are married. That means we cannot just cut off your relationship with your parents. And so in our nothing, most of our in-laws were staying with us most of the time. In our children, only last few years they were there, but at the same time they were. But at the same time, we know that one, every decision, they are part of it, they are helping us in many other way, but in all our decisions, again, both of us were taking the decision on it. They were not involved in the decision making. Decision is taken by us. But so many times, when your family is sick, the parents are sick, sometimes that take a priority. That time you say, I am wife and children, they are the core. But when somebody is sick in a family, or they need our support, that time that take a priority. Then the friends, we have a the friends are there before our marriage, and after marriage also we don't have to cut but at the same time prioritize. I was very active in the, I used to go before the marriage for the films. I used to go for the trekking. I want to go again. Then that is where the wife and children, you have to just ask them whether you are okay with it, or you are, you just prioritize. Now the changes, you have to go and enjoy more time with your wife and the children, so that that kind of it. The friends, has to be there, but at the same time you spend more time with your, then the job situation also. Job is needed, the money is needed, the finance is needed to survive the, but at the same time job should not take the center place in your life, so that every time you spend on it, and your ministry is affected, your family is affected, your children, you don't have the time to speak to them. And so that is, if it is happening, you have to just have a rethink about what is your priority. There are times in which job has to be the center for it. And if you are in the finance field, March 31st are coming, let me see, and then you have to be in the office. You have to. There is a deadline. You have to finish it out. That takes a priority. Then that wife and children has to understand that one. My, maybe or husband has to understand that one. This is a priority, that it takes the job has to be a priority that time. So this keep on fluctuating, but at the same time, the core of or the priority and the circle has to be wife and children, because they are going to be there the whole life. All your life they will be there. The job can come and goes, your friends can come and go, the ministry you will be active and maybe inactive, but the wife and children will be there for your whole life.
Yeah, so we said that we'd be taking every part like one by one. So when you're talking about male and female differences, so many times the conflicts we feel that the other person is inflicting pain on us, or or the other person feels that I'm inflicting pain on him, might not be something that someone is doing consciously or purposely. It might be something that is due to their, the physiological difference, like, because he's a male, he thinks and acts in a certain way, and because I'm a female, I think and act in a certain way. For example, if you can understand, like, for example, like, of course we all know that physically we are so much different, right? We have so much difference in our bone structure, our energy levels, our sexuality. For example, women can work longer, but and men, they uh, work, like, stamina for a woman is more, like she can work from morning to evening, but men might not have like such a long stamina. So that is something. Like, one example would be that, when our children were very small, and three of them, and with very less age difference, like in 4 years we had three children. So they used to go to school at the same time. In the morning you had to be ready, and in winters they had to wear all these layers of clothing. So sometimes when we've, like, on a Sunday evening, we've gone out somewhere and we come back maybe at 10:30 or 11. Uh, I would just, I would come in and I would start preparing for the breakfast tomorrow. I'll keep everything ready so I can just make the tiffin for them when they go. And then their clothes, I will keep everything in order. The socks, three sets of socks. So socks, the inners, everything I'll keep, the bags, everything ready. And Anthony would just crash. He would just come and he would just crash anywhere. So earlier, in the beginning, I used to feel, what is he doing? Why can't he just help me? If I'm putting all the food together, why can't he just get up and put the clothes together or something? But he'd say, like, let me sleep for half an hour. Let me just sleep for half an hour and then I'll do it. And then I would say, oh yeah, yeah, but I can't. Like, if I break now, then I will just go to sleep because I'm also tired. So, but I would put those things properly, and then I would go to sleep, and that was to give me rest. Like, I don't know, if I had left all those things and gone to sleep, how how well I would sleep. But in the morning, uh, many of the times, I would be just waking up when like Anthony is like all ready. The children are woken up, and he's even dressed them up, and he's got the breakfast ready, and he's got the tiffins ready. And many times, when I was extremely tired or not feeling well, it would be like he'll just wake me up, like, come on, get up and say bye to them. So those were the kind. So if I'm just going to think about, like, why he's not getting up at that night and creating commotion, so we need to understand, like, what is it that drives us? How is it? I don't do this, but he does, but he can do that. So something like that. We need to find a balance. Also, when women talk and all, I think we'll talk about that in communication. Also, there is things like, because of evolution, we have, like, men are supposed to be going out and hunting and bringing the food, and women are supposed to be like taking care of the family at the house. So even though we are going out to work, and there's everybody is doing everything now, but men generally, they have something called tunnel vision. So if they're looking at something, they're working on the computer, they just see that. They can't see, like, if the baby is crying, or something that's going on nearby. Maybe there's something cooking on the stove. But women have lateral vision, multitasking, and they can see not just in front, but they see the left, right. For example, if a woman is going to sleep, she'll say, "Oh, I'm going to sleep," and then what all she does, maybe she'll put the clothes in the washing machine, maybe she'll fill up water for next day, she'll keep food ready. So it's like, these are like uh, certain characteristics which we can use to help each other to run a good family unit, run a unit with a lot of uh, balance, and a lot of like going, managing well. So these are things we need to use for our own benefit. Also, far off sounds, the way men and women hear sounds. So men, for example, if there's somebody opens, it happens that, somebody opens a gate, outside the house, and the man might hear that. But if, like, the baby is lying next to the men, and the baby cries, maybe he doesn't hear that. And but for women, nearby sounds are much more audible than far off sounds. So those kind of things, like, there are a lot of physical and psychological and physiological things which we have developed due to evolution, and we might use it for each our benefit. And then there's something called extension of character, which means that uh, if when for men, it's more of doing things, yeah. So for men, they might feel like, uh, I'm going out and I'm working, I'm bringing money, I'm buying stuff for the house. So it's like doing things, and for women, it's more than doing, it's being. Yeah. So you're like, why don't you just sit with me? Yeah. Why don't you just sit with me, and just sit with me, and just maybe we just watch TV, maybe even not talk. Just sit with me, and and just talk, and just being there. So those are some differences that we have. And again, like, you have your periods, and we have our premenstrual effects. So uh, even men need to understand these things, that sometimes we're just not in the best of our moods, and that could be hormonal, and so many things, like that.
One of the, one difference you can say is why this difference we are telling is sometimes these differences, if you understand this, if you are aware of these differences, the conflicts won't happen. Okay, this is like that one. That person is not deliberately not doing that thing, or not, one thing I can say it is direct speech and indirect speech. It's like many times for us, women makes a lot of indirect speech as a women, as a common, and as I can say it, and that can create a lot of this conflicts also. Sometimes you go for a shopping and they will just see a sari and say, it's a sari is good. Sari is good. When you are saying that, means you have to buy that sari. They won't say they buy that sari, but or Then when you come down, it has happened to her. When you come back and after those things, you didn't buy that particular things for me. That means, so I'll tell them. So you didn't tell me. That means, you like that one. So I say that one saree is good. That means, so many times this kind of indirect speeches happening. So that is but as a man, we need to understand. So they are just directing to certain things we need to. So by now we after a few years of marriage, you will get to know. I mean, this kind of and sometimes generalize the things. You do you always do these things and always that generalized thing, but they don't mean that there is no meaning, but there is a vocabulary is like you always, you're lazy, you always sleep, you always wake up late sometimes. So these kind of small things can be irritant, but at the same time, maybe if you understand and aware of certain things, that can just help us to avoid the conflicts in a broader sense.
Yeah, so now we come to the most important part of married life, and that is communication. So communication is important not just in our married life, but even where you work, and even while dealing with children, or generally just anybody. So earlier we used to talk communication as something that, the one person sends information and the other one receives it. But now we know communication is just not that. So, like as you mentioned, your communication is the art of knowing and understanding your spouse and opening self to allow the other to know and understand you. So, when you say communication, it's not something like I said this and he understood. Okay, it's not as simple as that. For example, when just the other day we'd gone out and I told my son, "Hey, why don't you take a selfie?" Like and my daughter just like she was just standing there and she said, "Oh, oh, I don't take good selfies, right?" So I never said that, right? I never meant that. But that is what happens sometimes. So if I tell, uh, if you're, the wife, if she's, or the husband who's done a lot of cooking or everything and all, and then you'll say like, oh, I wish there was some chutney with this. Like she's already made biryani and she's made so many stuff, but she said, if there was chutney, that would have been good. So the person who's done the cooking would feel like, oh yeah, all that I made is not enough, right? So what is going on? So many times when I tell something to somebody, so I say, okay, I said this, but what did you hear? When you see the other person is not responding, I didn't say anything. I only said, like, I would say like, hey, why don't you just do the dishes? And like if I'm talking to my children, I'll say, why don't you do the dishes? And if they just come back, angry, so it's like, I didn't mean anything. What I meant was, can you just do the dishes now? But what is going on in their minds? So we need to ask, okay, I said do the dishes, but what did you hear? So communication is not just like, yeah, I said this and you understood. No, it's like, opening each other so much that not only do I hear the other person, but I allow the other person to see what's going on in my heart and what is it that I'm doing, what is it I'm learning. Because we don't hear or we don't say things right at every moment. What we're doing is actually there's a big formation that has happened. We've come from houses which were totally different. The wife is from a different house, the husband is from a different house, they've been brought up in a different way. So many times what we say and what we do, or what we mean, might not be the same for the other person. So just asking the other person, and like I said this, but did it land correctly? Did I what I said, did it mean anything extra for you? And then just talking about it. Yeah, just yeah, I understand that. So those kind of things,
So
yeah.
this another thing is about the heart to heart communication, spending time together and it's a very important part of this our married life. That means uh, dedicated time. I mean, spending time. We are all doing it. If you are sometimes you are in the house for 24 hours the whole day, but at the same time, if you are not spending that dedicated time, that quality time with your spouse, then it can create a little conflicts and differences there. That is called heart to heart conflict. Something that is us working in our married life is something that we decided from the very start, or spending our at least half an hour to 45 minutes every day apart. So our in-laws were there, the whole time, or maybe our my parents were, sometimes the whole there are guests coming. So many people are in our house many times, and but at the same time we have decided whatever is happening there, we have to spend that time. We used to just
Close the door.
close the door and spend time,
Switch off the mobiles.
just just talking what is happening in our life, and maybe we started sharing it, or we pray together, and sometimes it leads to a sexual intercourse also. This something very that spending that time, quality time, when we are away from the, she has gone for studies and we are away for almost few years. That time also we used to spend on phone, that quality time of almost more time, maybe 1 hour talking or different things, and that create that the bond, and we can share anything about our life. That kind of openness, and the talking about certain things, other person is listening. That heart to heart communication is very much, that trust develops, and we accept each other in a better way. So as a sexual difference is one of the things that is really affecting the people, and it's one of the major issues of marital discord and the divorce cases. That is why I just mentioned, we already must have taken a session on it. But they, both of us, husband and wife, has a sexual needs, and we need to understand that one. We need to understand the meaning of sex. It's about
Yeah.
uh,
So sexual relationships are about intimacy. It creates more intimacy. So it should not be considered as a chore. So if it is being, if it's being felt like a chore, if it's feeling like work, again we need to discuss like what's going on, what works for me. What are the days I don't feel like doing it, and then different foreplays, and actually this is like a whole session by itself, so we're just touching it here, and for paucity of time, we need to move a bit faster.
So we need to, one thing is the exception when you say
Yeah.
no to sex. That is something very important, because sometimes the priority keeps on changing when we have children, after after the child is born, and but the husband also, there is a need, and that kind of things. If you understand, sometimes it takes a lot of priority when you are when the children are very very small. But sometimes we forget about, there is a something we need to, that kind of a understanding and the desire has to be there, and both of them had to be active in the sex. Both of them get the satisfaction, and we ask, how active you are, and you spend more, you prioritize, then I think you will enjoy the things, and a lot of intimacy that can happen, and then
So conflict, as we like when we started off, we just said that it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. It shows there's a relationship. And then every time you have a conflict, so you get married maybe at the age of 25 or 26, and then you're together. But during the rest of the years, with every conflict, you learn something new about the person. Also, with time and with different circumstances, we change. So so many times people say things like, when we got married, you were so loving and you were like this, but now it's not the same, or the intimacy has gone down. It's not gone down, it could have changed. So we need be to understand, we need to talk about it, be aware of it, so those kind of things. And if we can handle conflicts well, we learn more about the other person, we understand, oh, this is something which can just trigger something in him, and I don't, I love him, so I don't want to do that. uh, Also, some of the things that we can do is like, first of all, that accepting the differences, that we are from different families, we've been brought up in different ways, and that we have different needs, and accepting those differences, not ever being selfish. There is no room for selfishness in marriage. Saying things like, this is my life and this is what I want to do, actually doesn't work. It has to be, with discussion, with mutual, uh, what do you call, when you've discussed and decided, then you can do it. And then pursuing the other person, never ever, just leaving it like that. For example, uh, Anthony and me, we've had like a conflict, and we've even maybe spoken to each other about it, and we're still angry with each other. But then Anthony will, might just get up and say, okay, I'm making tea. Would you like to have tea? Or in spite of those, conflicts and the anger that still is still there, you know, it's like, if I'm taking out food, if I'm taking out fruits, it's like, it's a given that I'm just giving it to him. It's not like, oh, now that we're fighting, I am not going to bother about you. I'm not going to pursue you. And also loving confrontation. If you see the other person is angry, it's you we one of the person who's angry, the other person has to understand that there's something going on for that person. At this time, let me just be quiet and listen to what she's saying or what he's saying, and then you give chance to both each other. So be and don't be angry together. Be like, let one person be angry at one time, another be at the other person. Then is forgiveness. You have to daily forgive, daily. That's something we need to do. Never, even if if you're feeling insulted, never thinking that that was purposeful. It was not something he or she wanted to do it on purpose. And then intentional, being intentional about us. We are one. So, whatever happens, like our children know, they'll come and say, Mummy, can we do this? I said, did you ask Papa? So he's like, oh, what's the point? Whether I ask you or Papa, you're going to say the same answer. So then we would say, okay, let me check with Papa, because we have to discuss and decide, things like that. Then the spiritual life, that's one of the most important part. When you're praying, it's not that we're just asking Jesus to come into our lives and make changes, the Holy Spirit to help us. When we are praying, we're actually teaching our brain to be positive, to think that, just think differently, that my spouse needs something, and I need to move in that direction. And then reinforcement, whatever small things you do, just say, this is nice, oh, thanks so much, you did this for me, I'm so grateful, thank you so much. So just being, mindful and intentional about being, admiring, and thanking each other. So it's work, yeah.
So it's work in a work in the progress the whole time. Alfie, how many time
I
last
think
time?
we're already overshot the time. Just let's go
So it's
faster. Yeah.
so something we can, when you are hurt, few things we can do it. Wait few minutes till you are calm and pray if possible. Find the real reason and examine our heart with the heart. Many times you self, if you evaluate after a fight or after a conflict or something, that means you will see a lot of yourself, whether I am wrong or not. Plan with what you say with a forgiving heart, and the words, the language you use, whether you are attacking, so don't, it's always say I rather than you.
Yeah.
I have done, I felt
I
like that.
felt like this when you said that, not saying that you said something wrong, but I felt like this. So talking that way, yeah.
Even sometimes you listen, and that is a time when we should not ridicule the other person or attacking or just listening. Maybe it's a time when you have a fight, when there is a things are not going in a right way. Acknowledge others feeling, and apologize if appropriate. John Paul to uh, always say, you should have sorry, Pope Francis says you should have three things: I am sorry, thank you, and one more thing, thank you,
Please.
please. These are the three things you should have. This vocabulary has to be in your as a married person, you have to be there. So so pray together. Then send Thomas Aquinas about when applied to the marriage, spouses to examine their own heart first, acknowledging their own limitations before focusing on the fault of others. That can, just if you look into yourselves, then you will be able to accept the other person. But something don't. You should not bury the pain. You
Yeah.
should be able to speak to the other person and
Yeah.
uh,
So it's like, as I said, we all come with a lot of wounds. So talking about those, we don't need to speak about, our past relationships or anything like that. But, the wounds, and we even now, we learn in psychology that we heal our wounds in relationships. So, like the Bible word of God says that, you are responsible for the spiritual development of your spouse. In the same way, in relationships, we are responsible for healing each other's wounds. We all come with wounds, and that's a given. Do not explode, don't get angry like and shouting and yelling, and showing that what are you, well, like, trying to show our power, that I can yell, I can shout. That doesn't work. This is marriage. Would you yell and shout at your boss? You wouldn't, right? And that relationship is only temporary. Your boss is there for 2 3 years, and this is like 50 years, 60 years. It's only what we give that we get. The investment and the return is equal. And then taking revenge or retaliating, it shows in movies like, yeah, he did this, so now I'll do that. No. Then not talking, just maintaining silence for like 3 4 5 days. Sometimes that goes on. I know of a couple who was on mute for maybe, I think, years. They never talked to each other. They used to tell the children, tell your papa to come and eat food, and he'll say, tell your mother to do that. So it can go on forever without even realizing.
for
And
us also, I think, we have our own conflicts at different times, but we never stop talking. That
yeah,
is the one good things that happen. Maybe we will, for the the type of the conversation may reduce when the conflicts is there, but at the same time we keep on talking for something or the other, and automatically, and when we are praying, and
yeah,
automatically it's it will start rolling, and you
yeah,
one person or the other who is very strong can say, I'm sorry. It's not one person, but both of us used to say sorry, even if that person's it's not their fault or something. And so don't humiliate the other person. Maybe even if they said something, but mainly humiliating about before others, when the
yeah.
children are there, parents are there. Don't
Making fun of the other person. No, it like, yeah, it's just fun. I was just joking. No, you can't. We can't make fun of our spouses. Period.
finally, Amoris Laetitia is talking about the life of every family is marked by all kind of crises. Yet these are also part of its dramatic beauty. Couples should be helped to realize that surmounting a crisis need not weaken their relationship. Instead, it can improve, settle, and mature the wine of their union. That means we should understand, and the crisis don't weaken the relationship of both of us. And so it's like it's a recipe. That means we have to work on it. 1 cup of love, 1 cup of responsibilities, 1 cup of faith, 1 cup of respect, 1 cup of intimacy, 1 cup of cooperation, 1 cup of joy and personality. And it's always when the love relationship is there, and it will be helpful in our own relationship, and we will be able to handle the conflicts in a better way.
So we just touched on points. We've not. We can't. We don't have the time to go into details. So these are some points which you can discuss with each other. You can study about it. You can go ahead and think how it works for you. So yeah, we overshot our time.
One thing we mentioned is sometimes we as a Jedi couples we pray together, and we try to solve it. Sometimes it's not able to resolve it, but we should be open for help.
Yeah.
We should go for some other couples who are maybe active, or maybe go to a priest or a spiritual direction, or sometimes marriage counseling. I mean, it should be open for it. If we should not leave it like that. But sometimes that help is also needed when the things are not able to resolve it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anthony Chetan and Reena Gigi, for the beautiful sharing. And now the floor is open for anyone who would like to ask any questions. Maybe we have time for Preeti. Okay, I think that mic is, if someone can mute Preeti. Anybody else would like to ask any questions? Either you can unmute and ask your doubt, or you can even put it in chat and I'll read it across.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah.
Hi,
Yes, Neha,
Chichi. Hi,
please
Chichi.
continue.
Neha here. So, hi, Cheta. Hi, Chichi. I just had a doubt. So, you said no, the main thing is having a God centered marriage. So, like in my case and many of the cases, no, like we are not married to JYs or people who are very much into like the faith or anything. So, when such conflicts happen, no, only it's like from one side only one person is trying to resolve things. So at one point, you generally tend to give up or like be like, why am I only trying? And why is there no effort from the other side? In cases that sometimes it becomes difficult. So as a JY, we know it is our vocation and like we should be working for it. But in situations like this, like what could our approach be? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that one. One, the it's a kind of a little patience has to be there. The other person is may not be having the more understanding and the spiritual the formation you have gone through. That is where the patience is needed in terms of helping that understand. So they will not understand all of a sudden. It won't happen maybe in 1 month or 2 months, or maybe it will take years. But at the same time, the person is watching you, your faith, your conduct, how you approach certain things, how you take a certain decision. You are witnessing life automatically. We have seen it. In this last few years, many families who are maybe initial struggle, and the husband or wife is not supporting, but at the same time later on you can see it that person has started involving and supporting that person. But it need a little patience. I need a constant witnessing, and maybe want to
So
add.
I know a couple who this person had converted from Hindu to Christianity, and he was like preacher and like awesome person. And then he married somebody who was not in the faith at all. She was a Hindu, and he said, "You can follow your faith, I will follow mine." But he says like he waited for 13 years for his wife's conversion, and now she's also a retreat preacher. So what I'm trying to say is that, see, it's very, when we say things like, okay, I mean, you have extra responsibility because you are the person in faith, and that's a very difficult thing for you. So maybe being aware of that, the first thing, like just like, yeah, this is not easy for me. Every day it's a cross. Every day I am carrying this cross of not having this, even though the Christ, I want a Christ centered life, but uh, it's not happening. But there's also one thing, it's like, uh, see, evangelization is from God. We only have to say, like, we just have to say that God, Jesus is the, everything. He is salvation. But the accepting by other person is, that's God's work, not our work. So you are doing your work, you're doing very well. I think you should just be happy with that, that you are doing. But when we expect that the change should happen at a certain time, maybe that is where we have a problem. We might just need to just wait, and just like, just wait for the like God to work, because that's not our work. Our work is only to just say, or do or live the life and just showing that how God is changing my life. But expecting the other person to change, that is not in our hands. And just keeping it real and understanding that, yeah, this is a difficult thing for me. And maybe uh, you have somebody with whom you can talk about it, maybe someone who uh, will help you with this. And just saying that, yeah, this is a difficult area for me, how do I handle it? So
Then, the prayer is very important in terms of, interceding for that person on a regular basis. Maybe the fasting and other things, automatically things will change. You have seen it. There is one and more question from Elora D'Souza.
yeah. Yeah, this is a very important question. This is where
We can say the question.
yeah. So the question is, when husband is making plans and just informing you at the last moment, how to make him understand that I'm not liking it, that you're giving importance to friends more than family things, how to communicate him properly so he can understand. Please guide. So this is a very common thing, and we can make it gender neutral, because even wives do that. Like, everybody does that. It's just maybe the other person is not understanding how you're feeling. And when if somebody makes a plan and then he comes and tells you at the last minute, and you really get very angry, or you just shut down and you're like, okay, do whatever you want. So that is not going to help. What will help is, like, when you're both calm and in a good place, just sit down and say, when that day you told me like that, I really felt bad. I felt disrespected. I felt that you don't give importance to what I think. And when you say this, and I say that this is what I feel, I'm not saying you mean it. Because if you blame the other person, they just shut down, their mind just shut downs completely. So first we have to bring them to an area where they're ready to listen. So that would be the first step, would be like, yes, it's not your fault, I don't think you're doing it on purpose, but I feel like that, I feel disrespected, I feel humiliated. I don't think that your spouse wants you to feel humiliated. And if you ask them, they'll say, I never meant that. Again, this is where we say that I said this, but what did you hear? But we need to tell the other person that. And for that is when you need to take out some time and just sit down and just take this time when you can just switch off everything, close the doors, and just take some time to just sit, look at each other, and just say that, yeah, I feel hurt by this. See, we've been this October we'll be celebrating 25 years of marriage. Even now there are so many things where we have to sit down and tell each other, like, hey, I felt disrespected. I didn't like the way that I felt so bad. Not blaming him, but like that, maybe he just didn't realize that this was happening to me, and it's after 25 years, so it's not linear. So today I told him, so tomorrow he's going to behave. No, it is circular. You have to keep doing on, and then he can also tell you, give him that opportunity, that what have I said that you felt disrespected, and you felt that that was not a good thing. And try to make the conversation like that, instead of blaming. The moment you blame, discussion stops. They stop hearing. The mind shuts down.
There's another question.
Go down. No, this the next
Yeah,
question
I'll
is below,
just
I think.
read the next question. There's one more question. What could be the response of a JY wife against the physical assault of her non-JY husband during the argument times?
So there's no uh, scope, or there is no place for physical assault in a marriage, whether it is JY, whether you are Christians, whether you are atheists, or whatever. There is no place for physical, mental, emotional, or verbal assault. So this thing, again, there has to be boundaries. You have to set some boundaries. So you need to again be in a place where you can talk properly, and ask the person, why does it feel okay for him to assault the other person? Why does it he feel that it's okay to be disrespectful to the wife or to the husband, because even both things happen. Physical assault is just not by the husband. There are even wives, I know of cases where they hit their husbands. So why does he feel that that is okay? That is the point of discussion where you should go. Was he assaulted as a child? Was it a normal thing in his family? If so, what are you going to do about it? This cannot continue. The boundary. No, that is not acceptable. And that has to be mentioned very clearly. You don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. If this is happening, uh, this is a serious issue, and there's no space. That's it. I'm forget physical. I'm talking about verbal assaults. You can't yell and shout at your wife or your husband. Even that is not acceptable, because that's verbal assault, or using bad words, or just gaslighting the other person. Those things are not acceptable. But give chance, let's talk about it, let's see what's going on. Is there some wounds that you need healing? Is there some issues you want to talk about? Work? Do you need to go to a counselor? These are things we need to talk about, because these are not acceptable. It's like no, non totally not tolerable.
It's like you have to find the right kind of a time, or to talk to the other person. Maybe you know that one. There is an ideal time in which that person is very happy, and that kind of a thing. You need to address this issue. So that time, if that person is not listening, just take an elder or somebody who can, or if that person is a non-JY, I think we need to, maybe approach a counselor. We can go together for a counseling or something, just to get a guidance how we can solve. Sometimes it is not, it's a habitual or something from the, as Rina was mentioning, from the family background, or for the maybe the inner wounds in the child or something. So it's become a habitual. It has to be resolved by. So the other person has to take the initiative in resolving, rather than getting dysregulated, or maybe it leads to a pain and walking away from the marriage and other things. Try, there are opportunity for resolving it.
We have one last question. When husband says he is very busy, not giving time, what to do and how to solve this type of situation?
Yeah, so yeah, when he says he's very busy, so even if he's busy, I mean, he does sleep, right? Or he eats food, and when you see the busyness, so what we need to think is, again, it's all communication. Something like, when we talk about boundaries, sometimes in marriages the boundaries are totally, there's no boundary, like, and you both of you can do anything to anybody. It doesn't work like that. So I need time, so that has to be very clearly stated. I need time. You have to spend time with me. And saying that you don't have time is not going to, that's not an option. So yeah, now how do we work time? So the thing is, like, one thing what we don't realize is sometimes is that we are like, both the spouses are very smart and very intelligent people. So the way, if you manage a office thing, you how do you manage your office stuff? Like, you come up with, like, okay, let's see this, what can we cut short, what can we not do that, or something like that. So you need to find out what is the time. The thing is communication. Why does he feel that he doesn't need to give time to his wife or his children? What's going on for you? That's the question. What's going on for you? And again, when we are talking, we need to talk, again, not accusing the other person, but we need to, like, sit down, like, where there's nobody else, just peaceful, and, like, in a good place, and then say that this is affecting me a lot, that you're not able to give time to me. What's going on for you? Like, it's, why does it feel that you don't need to talk to me at all, and I need? Also, we need to think, are we too clingy? Are we looking for work? Because I remember when I got married in the beginning, I always wanted him to be with me all the time and talk to me and speak to me and do this for me. And he's a human being. He can't give me everything that I want. No, it's not possible. So we also need to have friends. I'm not deviating from the topic, but the thing is, we need to see both sides. There are some things which the husband cannot give. We need to have friends, we need to have our family, talking to them. And even when you're talking to friends and family, we need to be careful that you don't talk disrespectfully about your husband. But the needs, what are our needs that it's not being met? It's not necessary that every shopping I have to go with my husband, right? I can go with my friends. I really love going shopping with my friends, especially with my daughter. She does very good selection like that. So that way we need to work out a schedule, what works and what doesn't work. So and that's the way it is. I mean, these things, you can only solve by just sitting and taking time to just talk, even if it's for 10 minutes of you can say, can you give me 10 minutes? Do you think you have 10 minutes? Don't give me more. That might go on for an hour, that's a different matter, but just say, can you give me 10 minutes and where this undivided attention, and I just want to speak something, let's just talk. So most, see, when we don't accuse the other person, and when we bring out our needs, uh, mostly it works, mostly. But if when we yell or we shout, we accuse
We argue.
or disrespect, or you're in that argument mode, then it doesn't work. Also, we set our point, but now just keep quiet and listen to the other person. The other person also wants to be listened to. Many times when we are listening, what we're doing is we are framing the answers to what he's saying. Oh, he said this. Oh, I have the answer for that. So don't do that. Just listen and just quietly say, yeah, that sounds hard. That sounds really difficult. You're going through such a tough time. Or maybe even saying things like, you're so busy, you're working so hard. I worry about you. You're not taking care of your physical health, you're not taking care of your emotional health. Saying things, which is favorable to him, and then bringing in the conversation. So I hope that answers the question, or a little bit.
Yeah. So I think that's all for today with respect to questions. So once again, thank you and thank Jatin and Rina Chichi for the wonderful